to this video. In this video I'm going to show you how to make the trouser that you've seen on the thumbnail. When you actually watch the video, if you like the video, if you watch any of my other videos and you like what I do here, be sure to give the video a thumbs up, as that helps the channel grow and helps keep the channel afloat. So I have my pattern for female pants over here. I've made a video on how to draft a pattern like this. The link to that video will be the first link in the description. Yeah, so make sure that you know how to draft the pattern and you draft this. I just didn't want to go ahead to draft everything from the beginning when I've made a video that's solely based on how to draft female pants. Yeah, also at the end of my pattern paper, you can see that I've written two numbers. On the one on the for the front, that's the front pattern, I have +6, meaning I have to increase the length of the length on the fabric when I'm transferring this pattern to my fabric. Also at the bottom here I have +7 for the back, so I'll need to increase the back by +7. The difference why the front is +6 and the back is +7 is because of something that had to go on at the waist area. If you see the video on how I draft my patterns for women's trousers, you probably understand why there's a difference up here. Alright, now the next thing I'm going to do, and I feel like the only drafts I would need to show you guys, is how to draft the band. Okay, so you've seen that the trouser has a nice black band. So to draft that band, you're going to need to measure your waist. So with the way this pattern is drafted, the front and the back are basically the same thing all the way. So if I measure from here all the way down, I have 9 inches, and on the back I have 9 inches as well. So if I draft one band, I can use that to cut all the pieces I will need for the waist. Alright, so using that 9 inches, let's draft the band. Alright, so I'm drafting the band on this pattern that I have here. We're going to first of all simply draw a line at the bottom. Alright, and then I'm going to mark out 8 inches. So you can basically start anywhere on this line. Sorry, 9 inches. So I'm going to just simply start from there, come to the end here and mark 9 inches. And then I'm going to divide 9 inches into 2. So 9 divided by 4 is 4.5. In your case, if you measure the waist and you have 8, when you divide 8 by 2, it should give you 4. If yours is 7, you should have 3.5. If yours is 10, from here to here, this line should fall at 5. When you've done that, the next thing you're going to do, you're going to come to one end and you're going to come up to another 1.5. Now this 1.5 is standard regardless of how wide here to here is. Alright? And then we're going to draw a line from here up. Alright. And then the next thing I'm going to mark is the height of the okay, before we mark the height of the band, let me measure through, because as we lifted it, that 9 inches is going to shift forward a bit. So you start from the beginning, like I'm doing here. You're going to measure through and then come up. So this is where 9 inches stops. Then I'm going to mark the height of the band. So the band at the end of the day, I want it to be 2 inches thick. I'm going to keep ½ inch for sewing and ½ inch for sewing. That's ½ inch at the top and ½ inch at the bottom for sewing allowance. So 2 inches plus the 2½ inches that I need for my sewing allowance is equal to 3. Alright? So whatever band size of band you want at the end of the day, add 1 inch to it. I'm going to simply place this everywhere. Alright, so with that we are done cutting everything. This is the pattern we are going to need to cut the band. The next thing is for us to transfer all the patterns we have to the fabric. So I'll simply put the fabric on the fold, place my pattern on top and cut, as you will see. Alright, I've cut the front. I'm going to simply fold the fabric the same way and cut the back. Alright, so I've gone ahead to cut the back part the same way, as you can see. Alright, so here is some fabric. I'm going to cut the band. Make sure that you also fold your fabric when you are cutting the band, so that you end up with 4 pieces as well. Alright, so but when you're cutting for the front, why I wanted to show you this, when you're cutting for the front, you see this, you're going to need to cut it twice. So you see a folded edge, you're going to need to place it facing the folded edge and then cut. Alright, you need to cut this twice. So with that, you have cut the 2 parts that are meant for the front. I'm going to cut 2 more, but this time you can cut it however you want. The edge here must not be closed. Alright, should not be closed. So I'm going to cut 2 more, and that's going to be for the both sides of the back. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to iron interfacing onto parts of the band. So remember, for the front we cut 2 parts, and remember this one here is joined together. So you're going to pick one up, keep one aside, and on one of them I'm going to iron interfacing to the wrong side. Now this is lightweight woven fusible interfacing. Alright, and on the back I cut 4 pieces, so I'm going to keep 2 pieces aside, and on 2 pieces I'm going to iron interfacing. Alright, so when I'm done doing that, I'm going to meet you on the sewing machine. Alright, one thing I forgot to add when I was telling you what I did when I was cutting was when I was cutting the pattern, I added for instance after I placed my hip, then my thigh, I added 1 inch to that number. To my waist I added 1 inch. So if your waist is 30 when you are drafting it, please make sure to see the video on how to draft it. When you are drafting it, if your waist is 30, instead of 7.5 on the front pattern, you place 8.5. That extra 1 inch we are placing on the waist, the hip, and all of that, that extra 1 inch is supposed to give us allowance, because we're going to need to cut here open all the way down. That extra 1 inch is supposed to give us enough allowance to be able to stitch this back. I'm going to go and divide this now from top to bottom, front and back, and then I'll be back for us to start stitching everything together. So make sure to do that when you are drafting. Alright, so I have divided the front. I'm going to join them together now, consuming half an inch. Also, I'm going to come from the waist and I'm going to come down, alright, from here to, when I get to 14 inches, I'm going to lock it there. Alright, so let me do that. Alright, so after we have done that, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my ironing table and I'm going to spread and iron this flat, and then I'm going to bring my bias. But before we go, you see where your thread, where your stitch stops, okay? Come on, focus. Oh god. You see where your stitch stopped? I want you to make a notch right at that point where the stitch stopped. Alright? And then we're going to go and iron the top. Alright, so now this is the front. That's the part that I just ironed. Let me show you the under part. So we just ironed this. Now the next thing is to stitch the bias, start stitching the bias onto it. So you're going to need to get a corresponding color for the bias, and also I cut the bias to be the same length with the trouser. So if we check, you would see that this is just about the same length. And then what you want to do is you want to keep the trouser, because you want the bias to sit like this. At the end of the day, you want it to sit in front like this. So what you're going to do is you're going to turn it. You see what I just did there? I hope you saw that. Alright, so confirm that you're on the front of your trouser, and then you're going to come to the opposite side and you're going to stitch from here all the way to that notch that you made. So when you're done stitching, you expect this to turn and face the front. Alright, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stitch from here all the way to that point where we made the notch. So now what you're going to do is you're going to turn the bias to face the front, you can see because of that notch that we made, look at it, it's able to turn to the front. So what I'm going to do, you're going to lay the bias flat like this. You want to keep a little space like ½ inch from the midline that you have, or like 0.25 or half of ½ inch, just a little bit away from this midline that we have. And we're going to start to stitch from here all the way to the middle. I'm going to start from the inside first, and then we'll come and stitch the outer part of the line. We'll start from the inside first. I'm stitching on this edge right here. Alright, so after making a stitch and stopping right where you made the notch, you're going to come to the other side, start from here and go all the way down. Alright, so on this side you're going to need to stitch all the way to the end of the trouser. And then I'm going to go ahead to do the same thing on the opposite side. So on this side, because we're supposed to have 2 lines per side, I'm going to come over to the bottom, and because I want it to face here at the end of the day, I'm going to turn it over to the wrong side, and I'm going to stitch from here all the way to the notch. So this is the back. With that, I'm done with the front. This is the back. I'm going to simply repeat the same step I took in the on the front here on the back as well. So I'm going to stitch down to 14 inches. I'm going to notch it, spread it flat, and then I'm going to install the bias exactly how I did when I was stitching the front. Alright, so if you can see here, I have stitched the bias on the front and on the back. The next thing we're going to do is you're going to need to join the sides, because you have that opening on the side as well. Alright, so not the inseam, that's the waist down to the hip. You're going to also hold that 14 inches that you held before. So I'm going to stitch from here to 14 inches, stop, back stitch it, make a notch, and then I'm going to put that the bias on that side, just like exactly how I showed you in the front here. Alright. Alright, so now you can see we have done the front, the middle, and the back side of the pants. So the next thing that we're going to do is you're going to bring all of it together, so you see the middle that you have here, and on this side you're going to sew from here all the way down to the hem. So on this side we are not stopping at the 14 inches, we're going from here all the way down. Alright, so after you've stitched it, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my ironing table, and I'm going to spread an iron here flat. So you see here, I'm going to spread and iron it flat all the way down. Then you have to repeat the same thing on the other side of the leg, because you know this is just one of 2 legs of your trouser. So you're going to need to repeat this step on the other side, and then when you've done that, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how we join everything else. Alright, so here we have the left and the right. What we're going to do next is you're going to pick up the front. So you can see the part that is shorter, this is the front. This is the part of the trouser that you can see that slopes forward, that's lower than the side that is higher, that's the front. So you're going to pick both sides of the front, and we're going to sew from here all the way to the joining. Alright, And after we get to the joining that's over here, we're going to stitch all the way, but you're not going to sew all the way to the end. You want to keep a space of 9 inches from here, from the edge here to here. All right, so you want to make sure that you have a 9-inch space as you stitch along. So the next thing is to go and iron here the stitch you just made flat, and then next step is for us to start working on our trouser band. Alright, so onto the band. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to join the sides with the stay together, and the sides without the stay, we'll join them together on the side here, consuming 1/2 inch. Alright. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm simply just going to go and iron all these parts here flat. Alright, we're going to go and iron all of them flat, and I'll be back. So if you want to add the detail with the bias on top of the band, you can simply stitch it on now. But for me, I feel like it's a bit much, so I'm going to complete my trouser without adding the white detail on the waistline. Alright. Alright, so with that out of the way, the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to simply stitch the bottom of the band. See this, the bottom of the band to the waistline. I'm going to start from here all the way to the other side. Try and make sure that all the side joinings meet. Alright, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to simply stitch on my zipper to the back of the trouser, as that's where the zipper is going to sit. Alright, so I'm going to simply turn it to the wrong side. I'm going to start from the bottom and stitch all the way up. Do the same thing on the other side of the trouser as well. Alright, so now after I've installed both sides of the zipper, I'm going to stitch down, and I'm going to simply stitch both sides of the band together. So you see the band that we have here. I'm going to stitch both sides of them 1/2 inch at the top here, all the way to the other side. So if you have excess zipper like I do, this is the time to chop it off. Alright, and then I'm going to lay this flat and top stitch it. So you see this excess, I'm going to keep the excess facing up. I'm going to simply fold this, and I'm going to stitch from here all the way down, all the way across to the other side. Alright. Alright, so after stitching across, you're going to simply fold down the waist like so, and then you're going to try to stitch as close to zipper as possible. That will finish off the side of the waist neatly. You're going to do that on the left and on the other side. So it simply was open like so. I'm going to simply fold it down back to here, and I'm going to stitch. Alright. Alright, so now the next thing we're going to do is I want you to simply turn everything inside out. Alright, and if you see the edge here, I went ahead to already iron and fold it by 1/2 inch, so that by the time we want to place it like so, all the rough edge at the waist will be planted inside. Alright, so you're going to simply fold here in. Make sure to push out the edges now that you have the chance, and then fold here in, and then you're going to stitch on top of here while making sure that the under part, the folded part, stays neat underneath like this. Alright, so let's do that. Alright, so with that, I'm done with the band, basically done with the whole pants. The next thing and the last thing you will need to do is to hem the bottom part. So whatever allowance you kept, at the end you're going to simply fold it twice and finish it neatly here, here, and here. And after I do that, I'm basically done with the trouser. If you've watched this far, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. Do have a lovely day. Bye bye.